said earlier, especially those of you who are joining us online this morning. Thank you for taking time to connect with us. And if there's anything throughout this message we can do to minister to you beyond this, please email us, let us know. We love to do whatever we can. We're starting a brand new series today called Let Hope In. And like I said, this goes with our small groups that we're going to be doing throughout the week. And I'm excited for this series because I think there's a lot of us in this room that we need hope. Right? We struggle with some of the stuff from our past. And as I was putting this whole thing together, that word, I'm like, I just felt like it needed defined, okay? Because here's the truth. Most of us, when we define something, we define from our own experience or our own understanding, all right? And so that word hope, when it comes to us, hope often comes with, it kind of conveys doubt. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Like when we say hope, for instance, if you woke up this morning like me and went outside, there's a part of you goes, I hope it gets warmer, right? I'm not ready for this yet. It was just a little bit of summer, and now like it was 40-some degrees this morning, and I've gone through this transformation over the past 8 months. I've lost like 78 pounds, all right? There's going to be a whole new level of cold for me that I have never experienced before, okay? So if I end up leaving, you know why? It's because I had to go warmer, because I was going to die if I stayed. No, it's not going to happen. I'll get warmer clothes. But I got up this morning going, man, I hope it gets warmer this morning. Or if you ask somebody the question like, are you going to go to heaven when you die? They're like, I hope so, right? It kind of seems like hope in our vocabulary carries some doubt with it. So what I did was I looked a little bit deeper. I wanted to see what the word meant, because you understand that, and if you're not a believer, you're not really have a church background, I want you to understand, like our Bible, though it's in English, when it was originally written, it was written in a different language. The older part was written in Hebrew, and the newer part was written in Greek. And sometimes when we translate words, and we use words like hope in here, we carry the same mindset of what we understand hope to mean, but we don't understand what the word actually meant. And so I pulled it for you this morning because I want to start building the foundation with this word. It's elpis or elpizo, okay? And here's what this word hope means literally. That's the word for hope in the Greek, and it means this. It means a confidence. It means security and being without care, right? That's what hope means. When we're talking about hope, that's what we're talking about this morning. It's a confidence. It's a security. It's, I don't even have to worry about this. I don't have to hope it gets better, because I have a confidence that no matter what, this thing is going to work out. It's where this verse comes from in Hebrews 10:23 that says, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess. And then it tells us why we can have this hope. For he who promised is faithful. See, my hope is not in my circumstances, and my hope is not in my situation, and my hope is not in my future. My hope is in the one who holds on to my future. But the problem with the hope is some of us, and many of us, we don't have it. Because if there's anything that can hijack your hope, it's your past. See, because our past, to me, is what ends up tripping us up. It causes us to go back to places we thought we'd never go. Let me ask you this question. How many of you in this room this morning, like you're a glass half full person? I mean, the glass is always half full. It's not half, it's half full, right? Everything is wonderful and beautiful, and there's unicorns dancing, and everybody's happy, right? It's all good, okay? You're that person. Is there anybody this morning that you're kind of a glass half empty? Okay, if you just raise a hand, being like, yep, nope, I usually kind of see it and it's not good, all right? I think for the most part, we're probably not honest, but if we were to talk to other people, we would say, yeah, I'm a half full guy. I'm a half full. I'm pretty optimistic that things are going to be good. I'm optimistic about life and my future, that my relationships can get better, my career is going to move in the right direction, that truly tomorrow can be better than yesterday. But if there's one thing that's standing in the way of our desirable future, for many of us, it's our unforgettable past. It's that part in our past that almost prevents us from moving forward into what we're supposed to move into. And I've seen this many, many times in ministry. People, that their past keeps people from moving forward. And here's the truth. I know this isn't really a popular message this morning because you want to hear that everything is wonderful and it's going to be sunshine and you get to play with unicorns and life will be wonderful. But the truth is, the most predictable thing about your future is your past. And for some of us, for me, that's scary. Because I don't want to go back there, right? I don't want to get caught up in that. So I think there's an important question we need to ask ourselves this morning, and it's this. And this is a personal evaluation. Can you ask yourself this? Do you like who you're becoming? Do you like the man that you are? Do you like the woman that you are? How about you as a parent? Do you like that person? As an employee? As a friend? See, a very difficult thing for everybody in this room is we are hardwired to repeat the mistakes of our past. It's almost like a program you would. If you put the wrong program into a computer, do you understand the computer is going to repeat that process? Though it's messed up and it's corrupted, it will repeat it continually until somebody rewires the program. And somebody comes in and reprograms that. Otherwise, everything's going to keep moving in the same direction. And that's some of the struggles with us is it's difficult for us because we are hardwired to continue to repeat the mistakes from our past. Especially when the past includes some type of hurt and some type of pain. We have this natural inclination, to allow our past to deeply impact our present. Here's a quote. You probably want to write it down, or at least you want to think about it, but this is the truth. Your past is not really your past if it's still impacting your present. Your past isn't your past. You haven't moved on from it. Have you ever had that conversation with somebody? Right? You can tell, they're like, yeah, and like they're angry at somebody or somebody's hurt them and they're like, and they're like, but then they throw that like kind of little Christianese thing and they're like, oh, but that's in the past. It's like, no, it's not, because it's affecting everything about you right now, right? It's still influencing how you feel. It's still influencing how you think. You can say it's in the past, and that's a good thing to say, and we all go, oh, that's, praise the Lord, it's just under the blood, okay? But the truth is, it's still messing with you the whole time. And until we deal with this thing, it's not really in the past because it's still messing with my future. It's still messing with my present. And that hijacks that hope that's in our life. And none of us want to live that way. Okay? So, anybody ever wonder why we have such a hard time changing? Right? Why do I keep making the same mistake over and over again? Anybody ever struggle with that mindset? I do, because I want to be a different person, right? I look at where I'm at, and I look at where I need to be, and I know this is where I should be, but I find myself back in that place. Why? Is it because I'm not disciplined enough? Maybe. Is it because I don't want it bad enough? I don't think so, because there's some times I really want to change. Maybe I think it goes a whole lot deeper than that. I think when I struggle with the questions of why am I not changing, why are things not different, I need to ask myself this question: why am I still carrying all that stuff from the past? Why do I keep carrying that with me? Because I think it prevents me. Because how many understand it's pretty hard to change when you're trying to drag all this stuff with you? Right? That's, I think, why Jesus says, and whom the Son has set free is free indeed. I'm free to live the life that He's called me to live, but the problem is I keep holding on, and He wants me to let go. So whether your pain is like hidden deep or your pain is right on the surface, what has happened in your past, if it's not properly dealt with, will almost always affect your future. But I have good news this morning. This book is full of good news, and I believe it today. I believe that the good news of this is who we were yesterday can be different, that there is redemption in Jesus Christ, that there is hope for my tomorrow. I believe this book is chock full of that. And at this church, we believe that with everything. We don't care who you are, what you've done. We believe that God has the ability to meet you right where you're at and not leave you there, but take you to the place that He wants you to be. Not because He's trying to clean you up and make you a good little boy or girl, because He understands that if we can let go of this stuff, you now have the freedom to experience the fullness of what He has for you. See, some of you, your life you're living life on a treadmill. Right? You're going hard, but you're going nowhere. And a lot of it has to do with the fact, how do you grab hold of what God has in front of you when you're still holding back with everything behind you? God's going, come on, man, let go and take hold of what I got for you. But see, it's this past thing that just keeps creeping on us. And so over the next weeks of this series, I'm going to present with you some choices, and they're not going to be easy. But I believe if you'll make some of these choices, you're going to have the freedom to step into what God has for you. And I believe this with all my heart. What He has for you is so much better than anything you've ever experienced. You have yet to experience what God has in store. He says that. No mind can conceive, no heart can understand, no one can understand what God has in store for those who love Him. And I don't believe that's just when I get to heaven. I say this all the time, believe it with all my heart. What Jesus did on the cross for me, the price that He paid for me, wasn't just to save me from going to hell. It was to save me from the hell I got to live here on this earth. Because sometimes my past is because of other people's bad choices. Sometimes my struggle had nothing to do with me making dumb choices. Their dumb choices might have led to some of my dumb choices, and I'm not trying to make excuses, I'm just trying to be honest about it, but I don't have to be a victim of those choices the rest of my life because Jesus died and gave me the ability to be whole. And that's what we want to talk about this morning. Now, so here's the first choice. If you don't learn to transform the pain, you will just transfer it. That's kind of the question this morning. Are you going to let God transform that pain from your past, or are you going to continue to transfer it? Here's the worst part of all this stuff, is it's a vicious, sick cycle, right? Let me explain how it happens. The pain you picked up as a child, you carry into your teenage years, right? And then the pain you carry as a teenager, then you take into your young adult years. And the pain as a young adult, then you carry that into your marriage. And then the pain that you experienced in your marriage, well, you take that into your second marriage, or your parenting, right? Some of you, I don't know if that one was a good joke, because that's real to some people in this room. I mean, I understand, and Pastor Chris, you're so funny, but like that moment, that's a real moment. Because there's a lot of people that have carried that stuff with them, and they're still carrying it. They're still dealing with it. The pain is not only passed on from circumstance to circumstance, and it doesn't just go with you from season to season, but this is the part that sucks the worst. You carry it from generation to generation. I believe there's probably some of you in this room, you're carrying stuff that mom and dad used to carry. They've just passed it on to you, and you keep carrying it. And we see this cycle continue. That's why I believe Jesus wants to transform this situation so it doesn't continue to transfer. I don't know about you. I don't want to keep carrying on this stuff. I don't want to pass on my junk to you. I'm sure there's parents in this room. You don't want your kids to inherit that part of your life. The only problem is some things are not taught, some things are just caught. You can do everything you can to try and not show that, not teach that. But if that's a part of who you are, I do a teen mom class. So I go to the high school every other Monday, and I speak to these, it's all girls right now. It's a total women's ministry. It's a little out of my element. I'll just be real with you, right? But I go to this class, and we were talking, and as I'm listening to these girls, and they're sharing their story, I asked the question, I go, do you want this for your kid? Do you for your child, for your daughter, for your son? Oh, no. I want them to have so much better. Well, how are we going to stop it? How are we going to stop it if we don't change ourselves? Because everything they're going to learn is watching you, is seeing how you respond. And though in all your heart you want to do it right, and I believe these girls, they so want to do it right. They so want things to be different. But if they don't change, the situation is never going to change. See, that's why our self-help books and different things of how to make ourselves better people and just think positive. I need more than that. I need God to transform me. I can't change me. I can't change anybody else, and I can't change myself. The only person who can change me is Jesus Christ, letting Him work through me. Do you understand what I'm saying, church? It's why we try so hard and we get so frustrated, because I want to be better, I want to change, and I try to do it on myself, and God's going, when are you going to let me? This is what I specialize in. I'm real good at this. When are you going to take your hands off and let me do what I need to do? And I exhaust myself and I frustrate myself, and so my hope this morning is this, that you will learn to transform the pain so it doesn't transfer. And this vicious cycle will stop. Guys, what I'm talking about today, man, it's such a big deal. See, because everybody in this room has been hurt. Some people in this room, you've been hurt more deeply than others. But everybody needs healing. Everybody needs somebody God to step in and do a work inside of your life. We all need healing from the stuff from our past. Whether it's a secret sin right now that you're struggling with. Maybe it's a broken marriage that you've went through, a closet addiction that you try so hard to hide so that nobody will know in the world. Maybe it's a sexual abuse that you've suffered that no one knows about, or a surprise divorce of your parents. Maybe it's a miscarriage you've experienced. Maybe it was that bully your freshman year. And again, this isn't a joke, because there's so many people who keep carrying that stuff. Do you know why this is such a big deal? Let me give you a real life scenario. Somebody grows up in a home where they're never good enough, right? Never good enough, never measure up. Parents use that as their motivation tool. They grow up to be super successful because they're always striving to become better, right? And we look at that and we go, that's awesome. But the part that sucks about that, they never get to enjoy their success because they're always striving for more. Because somewhere inside they're trying to be fulfilled. They're trying to get that good job. I'm proud of you. You did it right. And they never get it. And they keep striving and they keep striving and they find no contentment and they find no peace. And though they're accolades, we look on the outside and we go, they're the most successful person I've ever seen. They're dying on the inside because they're still grasping at something that they don't ever feel like they can grab hold of. And they spend their life, they waste their life trying to achieve something when Jesus is going, I already love you for who you are. But they're always going after more. That's not fair. Do you understand what I'm saying? But what's happened is that pain has so warped their mind that they're so chasing after something that they will never grab hold of, and they need to step away and let God heal that place so they can actually enjoy the success in their life. And that could be in multiple different scenarios. It doesn't necessarily mean you've had such a horrible past and now your life is horrible. Some of you, your past has shaped you into the person you are. Your success has much to do with the struggles from your past. And that's okay as long as it doesn't prevent you from experiencing the fullness that God has for you. Does that make sense what I'm saying, church? Are you with me on this? Like, are we following each other this morning? I hope so. See, because if you don't find ways to learn from your past, you'll always be doomed to repeat it. And so today we're going to look at a story of a guy in the Bible named Joseph, okay? Now, Joseph had one of those lives that, you know, back in the day in church, there used to be testimony time. You know what I'm talking about? Like anybody, testimony time, all right? Like anybody come and go, I want to hear your testimony. It's just your story. It's just what is your story? Where'd you come from? What's about you? Now, I like Joseph. Me and Joseph, we could be friends because I think if you were to ask Joseph, tell me your story, he'd look at you and be like, well, it's complicated. Okay? Anybody else in this room like me, if someone were to ask you your past, you'd be like, that's complicated. That's not as pretty as you might want it to be, right? It doesn't all fit exactly the way you want me to say it's all, but God had to get me out of some places. He had to find me in some situations and pull me out of some stuff that I'm not even sure all of that testimony is church appropriate, to be real honest with you. You understand what I'm talking about? It's complicated. It's complicated. I get you. I know it's pretty for you, and Jesus rides white horses, and he's always pretty hair and all that. But my Jesus is a little messy because I've taken him to messy places before. He's come and found me in some really low places. It's complicated. It's not the same. That's what I love about Connection Church. If you haven't noticed yet, we're not your typical church. I mean, I'll be real straight with you, and I say this every week, mean it with all my heart. I really don't care as much about Sunday. I care about your other 6 days. See, I grew up in a home, we went to church every Sunday, but it didn't change anything throughout our week. So I said, God, first of all, I don't know why you called me to be a pastor, because I'm pretty sure you got the wrong guy, right? I know you're God, you make no mistakes, but I'm sure you should double check your list, because I can give you a lot of other reasons why you should have picked someone else. But if you're going to call me to do this thing, then my heart is always going to be, I care more about home than I care about church. Because that's where your kids see what God really is. That's where your friends start to see if this is real or this is all just a show. Man, I don't know about you. I got other things to do on a Sunday morning than go through a show. I'm here to live this thing. And if I'm not living it, then I have no business being up here. And I have to work on this in my own life every day. So it's complicated. Joseph's life, he is complicated. It didn't even start out good, right? Like you talk about transfer. Like I'll just give you a quick backstory. Joseph had a father named Jacob, all right? Jacob was a swindler. He was a hustler. He ripped people off for a living. He did it to his daddy. He did it to his brother. He was hustling. Every day he'd be hustling, right? Out there making his way, making his money, doing it that way. So he gets, and how many understand that when you live that way, eventually it comes back to you? So he gets hustled, right? How did he get hustled? He found this fine girl. I mean, she was beautiful, right? He's like, I'm going to marry that girl. Only problem, she had an older sister. And in those days, you didn't marry the younger girl until the older girl got married. He's like, but the older girl, she don't look good. Like, she's not easy on the eyes. Literally, is what he says. He's like, I want to marry her. So his future father-in-law goes, cool, I'll let you marry her. Work for me 7 years and you'll earn her. Right? She must have been really good looking because he worked hard 7 years, put in the time. Now, in those days when they got married, they had their faces covered and they wore those burqa kind of things, right? So he marries the girl, goes into the honeymoon tent. She takes off the burqa. Surprise! It's the ugly daughter. For real, I'm not playing. This is a real story, man. Daddy tricked him, gave him the ugly daughter, went through the marriage. It's done. He married that girl. He's like, what? You kidding me? Goes back to dad, and dad goes, or father-in-law, see right there, how many understand Thanksgiving dinners will be awkward? Like, family reunion stuff is out the door at that point. Goes back in and he goes, you tricked me, man. You gave me the ugly one. I wanted Rachel. He goes, oh, it's all good. Just work for me another 7 years and you can have her. So he did. 14 years. Seriously, she must have had something going on. So he marries these two girls. Well, the ugly one, though she wasn't very cute, she was fertile. So she was giving him kids left and right. The pretty one, though, she struggled having kids. And finally she had a kid. Finally she had one kid, and his name was Joseph. So Joseph's daddy, this was his favorite, right? Because he loved this girl more than the other girl. How many understand, that's not a good start, right? You already aren't starting off on a good place right there. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to have you help me this morning. We're going to break this up. All right, so all of you on this side of the church, on my right side, you're going to be good news, okay? So when I read these different scenarios, you're going to say, good news. All right, let's practice it. 1, 2, 3. Good news. All right, now that has nothing to do with you. It has to do with where you're sitting, so don't get a big head about it, right? All right. You guys over here, you're going to be bad news, all right? So when I read a scenario and you're like, oh, that don't sound good, you'll be bad news, so go ahead and say it. Perfect. You guys are ready to go. All right. So one of the first things we see about Joseph is he's his daddy's favorite. And for Joseph, that would be good news. Exactly. But his brothers, they're very jealous of him. And it didn't help that Joseph had a big mouth, right? Not only is he daddy's favorite, dad gave him this beautiful coat. He's like, oh, everybody, look at my coat. I have a beautiful coat. Where's your coat? You ain't got a coat, right? Stupid, right? Just, it's that kid. He did need to get beat up, right? You ever meet that person in your life? I have met people in my life. One person I said it to was a guy, I shouldn't have, but I did. My problem is I speak sometimes without thinking. But I just told the guy one time, I go, you know what your problem is? You didn't get your butt kicked enough in life. Because if you did, you wouldn't open your mouth and be stupid as much as you are, right? And now, I'm not condoning violence, but anybody ever meet that person is just like, you just need to get your butt kicked a few more times because you would learn to shut your mouth in times where you shouldn't open it, right? Because that was the problem. They're like sheltered, like a homeschool kid or something, and they just feel like they could, not, there's anything wrong with that. Oh man, I just stepped in it. Look, my two pastors on the front row are homeschoolers, okay? God can use homeschoolers. So anyway, his brothers, they're very jealous of him, and he comes out wearing his coat and running his mouth, and they make a plot. They beat him up, and they throw him in a pit, and that would be bad news, okay? So then the next thing we see, Joseph, they get him out of the pit because at first they were going to kill him. And then they decide, well, let's not kill him. Let's put him on eBay and see what we can get something for this guy. It's better than killing him, right? So they sold him into slavery. Look, you might think your family is bad, but until you see your picture on eBay, you're still doing all right. Joseph, he gets sold into slavery. And he gets purchased by a guy by the name of Potiphar, who was captain of the Pharaoh's bodyguard. So you can imagine Potiphar's like a big dude, right? Like those bodyguards aren't small people. And he guards the Pharaoh, the most important man of Egypt. And the Bible also lets us know that Joseph, he's a really good-looking guy. Okay? That's kind of weird that it says it, but it says he is really, really handsome. All right? So I guess for Joseph, that would be good news. All right? For his brothers, that's bad news. So anyway, not anymore. He's gone. All right. So then he gets bought by this guy, Pharaoh, the big guy, bodyguard, right? And Pharaoh has a wife. And the Bible says that she ends up seducing Joseph. And that would be? See, some of you, I think you were wondering if that was good news or not. No! That's not good news. That's bad news. Okay? No. So it says that she comes after him one day, like she's like an animal, literally, according to what the Bible. We'll read it in just a minute, but he refuses her and he runs away from her. And yes, flee those crazy women, all right? But because he runs away, she falsely accuses him of rape. And yes, it is. This is the kind of flow of Joseph's life, right? I feel like Joseph is an underdog. Anybody else? It's like he's always like, it's good and then it's bad. It's good, it's bad. He's an underdog. I don't know about you. I always cheer for the underdog, right? I just have an inclination. Okay, the playoffs, right? Football, my team is the Bears, all right? Shut up. We don't want to hear it. Shut up. But here's, someone say bad news. Once again, I set myself up for this one. What I was trying to say is most of the times, by the time we get to the playoff, my team is no longer in the playoff. So decide who I'm going to vote for or cheer for would be whoever the underdog is of the playoff. That's who I'm kind of pulling for, right? I mean, I think we all kind of have that inclination. So when your team's out of the playoffs, you got to find others, and that happens often for me. So we're attracted to these kind of stories, but this is Joseph's story. I mean, he's the youngest. How many in here, you're the youngest? Right? You know how it is being the youngest. And I'm not, keep your hands up. I'm not saying the youngest is weird, but I am saying you should really consider who you're going to marry or date as you look around and see hands up in the air. Because the youngest are a little different, okay? It's true. There's a difference, man. And I'm not, look, truth of the matter is your issues are most likely caused by your older siblings, okay? I know it's true. I have caused issues in my sister's lives, okay? It's true. I used to play a game. We had this, we'd come home from school and we had this long gravel driveway, and as soon as we got off the bus, I'd be like, all right, Danielle, Elizabeth, we're going to play David and Goliath, and I'm David and you're Goliath, so I'm going to pick up rocks, and you got 10 seconds to make as much traction as you can before I start throwing rocks at you. And they would argue with me. They'd be like, no, we're going to tell Marion. And I'm like, 9, 8. And at 5, they were finally smart enough, and they would drop their backpacks. They'd be like, ah! And I'd be whipping rocks, and I'd get spanked for it, but it was fun. I had a good time. Yeah, please don't try it at home. Disclaimer right there. Thank you, Belinda, for saving me. These brothers, man, they get so angry and so frustrated with Joseph that they beat him up and they throw him in a pit. They want to kill him. And instead, they concede to sell this guy into slavery. This is a devastating series of events for anyone to go through. But imagine your own brothers. Can you imagine Joseph from the bottom of the pit looking up? And his brothers are laughing at him. Imagine what this does to the soul of a young man. Right? Imagine the people that people in life, they can tell you that they love you. But the question is, sometimes it's like, do you really mean it? Like, do you really feel that? Someone tells you or shows you they don't love you, and you feel every part of it. Right? When you're rejected, when you're treated less than, when you're hurt, when people who should be the ones to build you up say words that destroy you, it's like you can't get that tape out of your head. It just plays over and over again. And this is what Joseph's going through. He was sold into slavery. I want to read this to you. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. the account of this story. It's in Genesis 39, verses 6 through 15. It says, "So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he didn't concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph, he was well built and handsome, and after a while, his master's wife, Cougar, took notice of Joseph and said, 'Come to bed with me.' But he refused. She said to her, 'With me in charge,' he told her, 'my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he's entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?' And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, she pursued him. Like she's got issues, all right? He refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. And one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the other household servants were inside. She caught him by the cloak and said, 'Come to bed with me.' But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. And when she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and he'd run out of the house, she called to her household servants. 'Look,' she said to them, 'this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard the scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house.'" Joseph is framed. He's a slave. Nobody's going to believe a slave over the master's wife. So he's a slave. And now he's framed and he's put into prison for the very thing that he had self-control not to do. Time out. He did the right thing and he's getting punished for it. I don't know about you, but he's falsely accused. He's going to prison. These are the moments. These are my moments where I go, "God, why am I a Christian?" Right? Why I did what was right. I did what you told me to do. I lived according to what you said to do, and I'm getting in trouble for it. Like, why would I go to church if life isn't going to turn out? Right? Why would I keep believing this? Why would I keep doing these things when my life just seems to be falling apart? Why do I do any of this stuff? It's a why moment, and some of you, you're in that place right now. Why did this happen to me? God, this is unfair. This is unjust. Why did this have to happen to me? It's this crazy series of events that continues to happen in Joseph's life, sitting in prison, though the story isn't in there because he eventually gets released. And he goes from prison one day to the palace in Egypt the next. And if you've never read this story, I would encourage you, Genesis chapter, I think it starts in 37, read the story of Joseph. It's an amazing story. He literally goes from prison one day to the palace the next. He ends up being second in command of all of Egypt. Literally, Joseph is put in charge of the welfare department of Egypt because there's this horrible drought. People are starving, and people are coming from everywhere to get food. And so here's Joseph in charge of everything. And it ends up, Joseph's brothers need food. Now they think he's dead. They think he's gone. They think they'll never see him again. Right? And his brothers show up to get food, and here they are standing in front of the guy they sold out. I don't know about you. You ever been wronged in your life? You ever play those scenarios in your mind of like, this is the dream scenario, right? The person that wronged you, the person that fired you, now you're their boss. Oh. Right? Like now you're in charge. This is what you dreamed of. Here it is, the dream scenario. Okay? He's second in command of all of Egypt. Understand, his brothers are all before him. They don't even recognize him. He looks completely different. Joseph could snap his fingers and every one of them would be thrown in a pit, never to be seen again. He could have dealt with them the same way. And I'm sure in moments it crossed his mind, right? Because when you're faced with that kind of situation where you can finally have revenge, instead he chooses something much different. He chooses to forgive. He chooses not to transfer the pain from his past, but to let that pain transform him into a place of forgiveness. And not only does he choose to forgive, but he says one of the most profound statements in all of the Bible, Genesis 50:20. He said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Now, I struggled with that word intended because to me, if I hear, but God intended this for me. I went back and I wanted to see what the Hebrew word meant because I wanted to get the real understanding of that word. It literally means, if you take the literal translation, it means you devised to harm me. You were scheming and you were planning and you were putting things into motion to try and hurt me. But while you were doing that, God, He was planning. And He was moving things around and He was setting things into motion so that no matter what you did to me, God was devising for my good. And God is so much better than you. He's so much smarter than you. He's so much able to do beyond anything you could do. See, I love that right there. And Jeff, if you would come, because I believe that. I love that but God phrase. Some of you this morning, you need a but God moment. Okay, you need one of those situations where you say, yes, this is where I'm at. Yes, this is what my struggle is. Yes, this is my doubt. Yes, this is my frustration. But God. But God. But God. It turns it around, right? It says this in Psalm 70. I'm going to give you some but God verses. You may want to write them down because you may need them. Psalm 73:26 says this, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. I might be sick. I might be struggling. My flesh, my heart might be losing hope. I might be dying right now, but God is my strength. But God is my hope. But God is the one that I hold on to. It isn't about what I feel or what I think or what my circumstances tell me. It's God who says He's got a different report for this situation. Matthew 19:26, Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible. With man, this isn't going to change. With man, it's not going to be a different scenario. But with God, all things are possible. Come on, I hope I'm building some faith right now because some of you need it. Some of you need a little built up this morning. You need to walk out of here going, yeah, this is my circumstance. Yeah, this is my situation. Yeah, I had no control over what's happened to me, but God is not finished yet. But God hasn't put His pen down yet. He will close one chapter of my life and start to write the new one. This is the good one. Acts 13:29 through 30. It says this, and when they had carried Him out, all that was written about Him, they took Him down from the cross. They laid Him in a tomb. But God raised Him from the dead. Anybody this morning need to be reminded that our God specializes in resurrection? That our God specializes in taking dead situations and bringing life back again? Come on, somebody. I think you need to hear that this morning. In your marriage, you need to understand, but God. But God. In your frustration, in your hopelessness, but God is the author of hope. See, that's why I wanted you to understand the definition this morning, because hope has nothing to do with my circumstances. Hope has nothing to do with what I hope it might be. Hope is a confidence. It's an assurance. It's this steadfast belief, because my hope is not in anything around me. My hope is in the one who they put Him in a tomb and they shut it down and they said it was over, but God raised Him from the dead. But God moved in His behalf. That's what I'm talking about this morning. Once we were dead to sin, but God made us alive. Once we were captive to our past, but God set me free. The goal of the next few weeks is not to turn you into a person that doesn't have a history. The goal of these next few weeks is to work with your past so it won't continue to impact your future. I believe that anything is possible. Do you? I believe. I believe. The question is, do you? Is healing possible for you? The last thing I want to leave you with, and I hope this burns into your memory, it's simply this: God is bigger than your history, and He's way more concerned with your destiny. He's bigger than your past. He's bigger than all your mistakes. He's bigger of all the faults and all the shortcomings. And not only that, He doesn't even really care as much about that, because He's got something so much better for you over here. He's way more concerned with your destiny. Some of you haven't stepped into your destiny because your history keeps holding you back. How could God use somebody like me? I don't know. I read that verse, it said it, and I believe it with all my heart. He takes the foolish things of this world and uses it to confound the wise. That's my story. But God, the world said, not worth it, doesn't have what it takes, not smart enough, not this enough, not that enough. But God chose me. And it had nothing to do with me. He chose every one of us. The Bible says, while we were still sinners and we were still enemies of God, He came to choose me, to reconcile me to Himself. I love that. I love that. I believe that, and I just wonder if you do. The act of hope and restoration is a gift. Do you understand that? What I'm talking about this morning, this restoration of instead of transferring your pain, to let your pain be transformed, that's a gift. And like every gift God has, it must be received. So my question this morning is, will you receive it? Will you receive it? Will you receive this gift that God has for you? So you can learn to dream again, so you can learn to believe again. We're going to go into a time of worship. I'm going to pray for you in just a minute. Actually, worship team, come on up. I'm going to pray for you, but I don't want you to leave without getting some time with God, whether it be in your seat. You know what? And I was thinking about this morning. Some of you, and you haven't done it yet, or maybe you've already done it, but your but God moment should maybe be communion this morning. Because that is a physical representation of everything I just talked about. And as you receive it, you say, yes, God, this is my situation. Yes, this is my scenario. But they put you in a tomb. They killed you on a cross. But God raised you from the dead. And we do that to celebrate that. We do that to remember that. So when you come up and you receive it, you're saying this, yes, this is my situation. But God has the ability to deliver me, set me free, bring me out of this scenario. And even if my situation doesn't change, my heart still can. Sometimes I can't control the situation because other people are making choices for me that I don't have power over. But my heart can. My heart can. And I choose to believe. I choose to believe. Bow your head, close your eyes. I'm going to ask the question with nobody looking. First is this. Is there anybody in this room you would be like, Pastor, I need a but God moment. I'm struggling. I'm just going through some stuff. Raise your hand. Just raise your hand. I want to know who I'm praying for this morning. Thank you. Thank you. Hands are going up everywhere. Thank you. God, I just need a but God moment. I need Him to remind me. I need Him to show me. I need Him to give me hope, because there's some places in my life I don't have hope. I want to pray. Lord, right now in Jesus' name. God, I'm asking. You know every situation. You know every scenario. You know everything that's represented here right now. I'm praying for hope this morning. God, it says you are the author of hope, that you write hope, God, that it's all about you, that there's this confidence, this security, God. God, I believe most of them have their hands raised this morning. They believe in you. They believe in you. They know who you are. They trust you with their heart. They've given their lives to you. But God, we want to transfer not just our lives, but our confidence, our assurance that the one who holds my future has got everything under control. And though my circumstances I may not understand, He's still got a plan. And though man or things or stuff in my life may feel like it's devising against me, you're devising it for my good. You're turning it around even now as I speak. What the devil has intended to take me out, you're using, getting ready to take me into the next place that you want for me. He can't do anything to stop me. He can't do anything. The only thing he can get me to do is get my eyes off you like Peter. And that's what we've done. We've taken our eyes off you and we've looked at our situation. We've looked at our stuff. But I pray right now in the name of Jesus that you would look back to Him right now. That you would put your eyes back on Him like Hebrews 12 says, fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. That we would turn our eyes back to Jesus and off our situation. And God, as we look to you, hope would come alive inside of our hearts. And assurance that that one who they put on a cross, then they put in a grave, and 3 days later He kicked out the tomb and came forth from that. That's the guy who's been working on my behalf. Greater is He who lives in me than he that is working against me in this world. God, I pray, hope, let hope arise. Let life come forth. Let the power of God build up inside of our hearts right now. Jesus, thank you. You got a plan in this. You got a plan in this. What the devil meant to destroy me, you're building for my good. You're building for my good. The Bible tells me all things work together for good for them that love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. I know it isn't easy, but I'm not done yet. I'm not done. God, raise up hope. Switch that situation. Before I let you go, before we get out of here, go back into a time of worship, I want to ask one last question. Is there anybody in this room this morning, you don't know Jesus? You've heard about him, or maybe you went to church when you were little, but your life is not right with Jesus. The greatest moment you could have this morning is saying yes to Jesus. Because everything I've talked about, to experience that comes with the relationship with Jesus Christ. And he wants that relationship with you. If you're here this morning and you've never made that commitment, you've never asked Christ to come into your heart, be your Lord, be your Savior, with nobody looking, every head bowed, every eye closed, would you raise your hand and say, Pastor, pray for me. I want to give my heart to Jesus. Thanks. I see that hand. You can put it down. Anybody else say, that's me. I need to give my heart to Jesus this morning. That's awesome. Great decision to be made this morning. This is what the Bible says. You just confess. You believe what I said, that he died on the cross. That purpose of his death on the cross was to forgive me of my sins. And I admit I'm a sinner. I admit that I've messed up. I admit that I have made mistakes. But the reason he died on the cross was to forgive me of all my mess, to cleanse me, to make me right before him. And then you invite him to come into your heart, to be your Lord. It means you let him take control. You give him the rule and the reign and the authority of your life. Not only, the best part of the story was not only did he die and did he suffer and did he forgive, but he rose from the dead. And we put our hope in that. He promised that if he died, he would rise again. And our hope is in that. And that one day after he rose, that he would come back to get us. And we hope for that. We wait for that. So if you're saying that this morning, you're making that prayer your own, I ask in Jesus' name, man, that you will take the steps to really follow this. I want to help with that process. On your communication card, if you made that commitment today, would you mark it and make sure you drop it in one of the black boxes and just put, I made a decision to follow Christ, because we want to do anything we can to help you in that decision. It's not easy. It's not the easiest thing to turn your life around, but I tell you what, it's the most rewarding, fulfilling decision you will ever make. I promise you that. Church, would you stand? And can we go back into a time of worship and just celebrate what God is about to do in our lives? Then as we go through that, Rachel will give you a time where we'll dismiss you. But I want to just take one song. And again, if this morning would be a moment, come grab some communion. Spend some time with Jesus. Just really seek him this morning. If you want prayer, myself, Pastor Steve will be up here. We can pray with you.